Hello and welcome to Chapter 7 of Nightfall. I'm your host, Nifotosan, and in this series I use AI Dungeon to write up an ongoing crossover fanfiction using characters whose voices are available on the website Uberduck. Feel free to check the description of the video if you want a little bit more info on what websites I use to make the video the way it is. So in the previous chapter, the AI brought Shrek along with Applejack where they encountered the Nightmare King. However, Shrek just kind of zoned out while the Nightmare King appeared to murder Applejack and then just fly off. So I figured for this chapter we'd rejoin Shrek, so I wrote a nice little paragraph reminding the AI what had happened and giving it like a sensible kind of goal and direction for Shrek to go in. But as you'll see, the second I gave the reins over to the AI, it just went in a completely different direction. So let's get started. It had all happened so fast. Shrek had been thinking about his late wife, when the Nightmare King had arrived and stricken Applejack dead. She had disappeared then, along with the Nightmare King's forces. Left alone above a ruined Ponyville, the ogre decides to head into the forest to try and find Applejack. But, as he leaves, he sees something else. A portal opening up. He can see inside, and there's a young woman, lying down as it first appears. But she is different. Her hair is pure white, no gray. Her hair matches the purest snow. Her skin is an alluring violet. There is a smile on her face. There is something about her that calls to the ogre. Like, maybe she's his other half? You'd think she'd be dead, but she isn't. She doesn't seem to care about the planet around her or even much about her surroundings. Just like him, she is beautiful. He isn't thinking rationally right now, but God, he'd kill to be with her. She turns towards him. He feels an unsettling numbness in his body, but not altogether unpleasant. He can't even move despite how much he wants to. She floats closer to him. Why doesn't she have a reflection?
Hello, Shrek.
There is a cold wind blowing. It blows her hair, but it isn't a wind. It is her hair.
Got a minute!
She tilts her head to the side.
I always have a magnet for my beloved.
She looks over at him, smiling. How can she smile? The planet is dying. Why doesn't she care? She tells him what happened to Applejack, how the Nightmare King stole her away from him. She tells him what the Nightmare King did, in vivid detail. Then, she tells him how she stole her back.
I thought you was going to kill me up here.
I know the pain you felt when you lost your wife.
You know,
My name is Amethyst. Little one, I know everything.
She nods slowly.
does that include the Nightmare King killing me?
I don't know anything, except I wish I did.
She turns, walking into the portal. She's gone before he can get his bearings about this situation. The portal disappears, but he feels no sense of loss. He isn't sure how he should feel. The planet, it's dying. Why doesn't anyone care? He doesn't understand why she didn't care. She lost her home and her wife, and she doesn't give a shit? His home, his wife, they were ripped away from him in the blink of an eye, all in an instant. He doesn't understand her, him. His heart sinks. There must be something he can do. He hears a rustling in the woods that interrupts his thoughts. He raises an eye to the night sky, spotting several black shapes. They scatter as one. An oblong shape lands near him. It opens, and Spongebob steps out.
Hey, neighbor.
The Spongebob says.
What are you doing here?
Shrek asks.
I was out for a walk.
With these things?
Shrek asks, pointing at the dozen or so rats that surround Spongebob. They're larger than usual. Not even the Nightmare King could control these things.
They're just rats. Can't you tell by how friendly they are? Can't you feel?
They're not fucking friendly. They're monsters.
I'm telling you, they're rats. Not only do they lack the intelligence to understand what you did to us, but they're mostly just trying to survive under the rule of the Nightmare King. You can't blame yourself for this.
I can. Because if I hadn't, I'd pissed off the Nightmare these things were never.
Spongebob sighs.
Look, what are you going to do live in this big castle surrounded by nothing but fields? You need to take the bad with the good, or you will go insane.
Why are you in here?
Amethyst told me you'd need my help.
Shrek raises an eyebrow.
She told you that.
Spongebob nods, following Shrek's gaze to a burned patch of grass where Applejack had died.
I can't let it go on. These accidents need to stop.
What do you want me to do?
Help me burn this earth.
Spongebob nods.
Let's do it.
Spongebob holds out a hand. Shrek grabs it, and the two of them raise their other ones into the air. They fire lightning at the trees, and the grass, and the animals, and anything in their path. Everything is set alight, and within seconds, the fire has spread. The animals scamper out of the way, and the rats flee deeper into their burrows. Shrek and Spongebob don't even notice. They're too caught up in burning the land. Spongebob takes a deep breath, then lets it out slowly.
Ah, that feels good. I think this land needed clearing away.
Yeah.
Shrek stares at the burnt patch of earth, almost having a moment of silence.
Fuck it. We're not letting this piece of shit go to waste.
He turns, storming off to the castle. SpongeBob stares at the burning patch of ground, feeling nothing but joy for the first time in what feels like years.
I don't know why, but I feel really happy about this.
SpongeBob looks up at the sky, watching the sun slowly disappear.
It's not even dark yet.
He sighs, standing up.
All right, let's get home. I need sleep.
He tosses the flintlock into the tree and walks back home. As he approaches his house, he sees a strange figure standing outside.
Was that? Oh, it's just a familiar face.
The strange pony says. SpongeBob shrugs.
Are you one of the farmers I trade with? I get confused sometimes.
I'm the one who's confused here.
The strange pony says.
I think I died, but now I don't know where I am.
You're on the farm.
The pony shrugs.
I don't know. I just woke up in the middle of nowhere with no memory of how I got there. All I knew is I had to get home.
Well, you are home now. What's your name?
Applejack.
I'm Spongebob.
Applejack plops down on the ground.
Thanks, friend. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Good night.
Good night.
SpongeBob heads inside and goes straight to bed. He closes his eyes and falls asleep. He sleeps for the entire night without waking up once. The next day, he wakes up, only to find that it's the same as any other. He gets up and goes about his day. He washes, eats, until one day changes his life forever. It's a normal summer afternoon, as usual. SpongeBob is washing the sleep off of him, as usual. He looks out the window, and he notices a strange black figure lurking outside. It's wearing a mask and a cloak, with billowing black hair. Even from inside, he can see that this figure is quite creepy.
Spongebob?
Applejack is squaring off with the hooded figure outside.
Are you?
I'm your worst nightmare.
SpongeBob leaps out of his window.
Ah, you're the Shadow Weaver.
What do you want?
I just wanted to meet you. You're my idol.
The figure gives a creepy laugh.
Then I'll enjoy watching you die and dance at my leisure, mortal's currency.
Wait.
SpongeBob runs at her, but the figure conjures a force field to block him. He screams as it burns his flesh, turning it into ash.
You fools couldn't see you playing right into my hands.
The figure laughs. It points at Applejack.
Grab the apples. We're leaving.
Applejack nods and runs for the trees.
You stay away from them, or you'll call her to the Nightmare King.
SpongeBob roars.
Nice apple bugging.
The Shadow Weaver says, not taking her eyes off of Applejack.
But I am not the one you should be worrying about. You've anchored a force much more terrible than me, and much more powerful. You are going to become my prey.
You're not funny.
Applejack says. The Shadow Weaver lets out another laugh, one of pure, unadulterated evil.
I assure you, I very much am.
The hooded figure points at her head.
You consider yourself a god, but you are nothing compared to the Nightmare King.
A red, demonic face appears on her palms. She walks towards Applejack with her hands stretching out to grab her.
Then now I shall feed it.
SpongeBob watches in horror and springs into action. He tackles the masked figure and begins pummeling her to a pulp. The two roll around on the ground, punching and kicking each other.
And if I say,
The Shadow Weaver commands.
you are only making this easier for me,
She points at Applejack.
you grab the apples.
She nods and runs back towards the trees.
You call off your beast.
She commands, pointing at SpongeBob. SpongeBob stops.
My beast.
You have dragged him into this.
Shadow Weaver says.
If you truly care about him, you'll get him out of my realm.
SpongeBob nods and runs out towards the orchard. They're only about a mile away, but in this realm it feels like miles. He runs through the fields, passing the occasional scarecrow, up towards the orchard. He finds himself in a clearing, not too far away from the trees. He sees Applejack curled up in the grass, sleeping. She looks so peaceful. He walks towards her, unsure of how to wake her up. He nudges her in the side, gently shaking her.
Hey!
He says, shaking her again. She wakes with a start, instantly awake.
What the? Where are we?
She says, waking up.
You're back in the orchard.
Oh, okay.
She looks up at the trees.
What happened to the Nightmare King?
The orchard's safer than it used to be.
SpongeBob notices a figure standing by one of the trees.
Is that?
It's Shrek. He's changed a bit. His eyes are glossy and hazed, his mouth slack-jawed. SpongeBob wonders if this was the beast that Shadow Weaver had been speaking of.
Shrek!
Shrek looks at them. His eyes move slowly, staring at them both.
What? What happened to you? What pity?
We fell asleep while playing Gerd.
Applejack explains.
I'll be back.
He says.
I'll take over the kingdom for the Nightmare King.
He walks away from them, deeper into the forest.
Will he be okay?
I suppose.
They sit in silence for a while.
I have an idea.
SpongeBob says.
Why don't we launch a search and rescue mission for everyone? I mean, we're the only ones left. Mr. Krabs won't mind if we take a break from work, and it's still summer. We can do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Applejack says.
Come in.
SpongeBob is glad they agree. The next day, they set out on their search. They're plenty lucky. Mr. Krabs isn't around, as he went to work at his fancy restaurant. You might think that this is the end of the story, but that isn't the end. The end comes at the end. The beginning is the beginning of the end. End. So despite what the AI said, I feel like this was really the end, or at least for this chapter. The AI got a little bit trippy at the start, it felt like, but I think we got a bit of a narrative once we followed SpongeBob to his home. I was surprised when it brought Shrek back the way it did. And now I know a lot of this probably feels pretty random, but I promise that elements from this chapter are actually kind of important later on in the story. But at any rate, I think for the most part this was a much shorter and more fun chapter, a bit of a palate cleanser after the last one if I'm being frank. But if you didn't see the previous chapter, here's a little preview.
Is it true that you had your heart broken by a velvet-covered hammer?
She asks. His eyes widen.
How did you know?
I told you, I'm the mind reader, but don't worry, it's not my problem anymore.
No, it is my problem. It always will be.
Fluttershy looks down.
Shendu bitch.
She mutters. Why can't she just shut the hell up and let her victims do the talking?